yeah, if people don't have questions, no worries. But we just thought we'd be here in case you want to know anything more. It's a lot to process, and part of normalizing this kind of stuff is talking about it. So that makes it hard. Yeah. But we're getting some nice messages from people, which is lovely. Thank you, Jennifer Collier, for asking that. If people missed it tonight, yeah, so we hadn't used it before, but the way YouTube premieres work is that as soon as the premiere is over, that same link is supposed to be the one that you can watch. I will have no shame in asking everyone, if you thought this was meaningful, please, when it's live on Amazon Prime, please watch it again. It just helps us if people start watching it, if you can tell people that you know. I have some friends who are therapists, and I know that bibliotherapy is a thing. So for people who are suffering, to be able to read books and watch videos about what they're going through, it makes them feel less alone, and that really is the goal here. So if you're someone who's watching and you've been through this, we're so sorry, but you're not alone. And the resource page of stigmadoc.com has a bunch of resources that you can use depending on what you might be going through. If you are someone who's looking for a way to help, I will say there are a couple of ways. The first would be to make sure that you talk to people, and if you have stories to share those, because it will make people feel less alone if they hear it, and it's okay to talk about it. The other is we want to make more of these. So watching on Amazon is really helpful. Sharing with people is really helpful. We have a Kickstarter, so if you want to contribute to the production of the next one, like we did this in a day, so we can do it really inexpensively. There are also t-shirts if that makes anyone excited about the idea. But I am like really honored that I'm seeing some people talk about where they're coming from, and I think we can get into some of the questions now if that works. So let me go to this is a hard question, but I think it's worth talking about it because it's something we talked about today. From Colleen Friends, she said, how much of this story will you tell River? And we talked about it today because we said it's something that will exist out in the world. Do you want to answer? Or?
No, it's a good question. I think that it's not a black and white answer really. It's a little fluid. I think we were discussing it today because we also have to consider my daughter. So there's a 10-year-old in the equation, and her level of comprehension is going to be a lot different, and her perception is going to be a lot different than River's, right? So I think in short, I think I'll make her aware of it. One thing I'll say, let me back up. I think I want to say this first. And as a compliment to everybody that, Ariana primarily, I guess, but everybody that contributed to the production of this and the creation, I think it was done really tastefully, and this wasn't tragic. It could have been really, really tragic. And I think we could have focused on some anecdotes and stories that were scary, and we didn't do that. And I think that we chose not to do that because in order to destigmatize these things, you have to normalize them, and you have to be able to recognize them in everybody. So that's why I did this. And I know you didn't ask that, but in weighing this, I had to weigh how everybody's going to look at me a little differently, and that included my children, right? So it's out there to hopefully with the intent of make other people speak up, and other men in particular, or anybody, but anyone else that's had a similar experience, because they don't have to feel scared or alone. And if Rylan has questions or if River has questions, I'll answer them all directly and honestly. And I think that's the best I got. Yeah.
I'm going to segue into something that makes it lighter. Did River have big budget demands on set? It was the most difficult talent I've ever worked with.
I was pretty grumpy. It was a rough day for them, I'll admit. It was a lot of running in the park. And
it was a lot of working out one day.
Yeah, it was a lot of working out.
It started with running, then it was warm-ups, and was jiu-jitsu next, and then weightlifting?
Running, jiu-jitsu, weightlifting.
I think so. We forced him to work out to the point where he was actually sweating. So.
Which is really hard to throw your own body and make yourself sweat. The jiu-jitsu guys and ladies will understand that.
Okay, thank you for asking those questions. There are more, so I'm just going to get rid of some of the ones here. This is a great question. So from Monica F, expanding a little bit on what mirror work is.
Wow, great question.
Well, I'll intro and say that my therapist told me about mirror work, and I was like, no. I tried it, and it was terrible because it's looking at yourself and kind of trying to process some things, and it made me so insanely uncomfortable. I never really did it. Maybe did it once or twice for like a minute, maybe two. But I told John about it, and then.
Yeah, great. So she told me, and then I thought, I'll try it. I'll try anything. I'm desperate. So I tried it, and I hated it for like a week. Like, it was a miserable thing. And it was a matter of like, I literally set the timer on my phone. I said, 60 seconds, stare at yourself. It was horrible. This is what everybody would imagine that experience would be like. And I felt vain and weird and awkward and achieving nothing. And then after a while, I thought, like, what is the intent of this? And it just happened to coincide with the rough week at work. And I just literally kind of talked to myself as if I was somebody else. And I was like, dude, this was effed up. And I said it out loud, and I just said, I don't care. I just talk to myself. And the result of that first, memorable, I guess, experience was that I stopped and I go, wow, man, I'm really glad that I didn't get mad at such and such at work. And that moment made me pause for a minute, because I was just rambling and kind of venting to myself. And I thought, oh, that felt like good. It actually kind of felt good, and it was as if somebody else had told me, kind of like, I'm proud of you. And that's just not something I think a lot of us get a lot of, but like me, for sure, I never heard that a lot. I don't think so. It was really great to just kind of feel that. And I think for me, it just healed a little wound. And then the next week I had an opportunity to tell myself I was proud of myself. And I was proud of myself. And then it's also really mundane things. It's pay your credit card bill. It's straight like, it's like, don't yell at River. He can't help that. Like, it's really simple stuff too. Not every day is an epiphany. And I've written about it. It's on social media a couple of times, and it'll be far more eloquent there because it was proofread by somebody else and edited it. So there's a little bit more information out there, a little bit more in depth, but that's the practice. That's the practice I do.
And it has motivated me to do more of it, although with not any big frequency. But it's also nice to, like, the accountability piece is really nice. And we had some fight recently within the last week or two. We're moving, and it's COVID, and there are a lot of things going on in our world, so probably normal. But one morning he came and said, hey, I did mirror work for 49 minutes. It's a really long time. And I realized that this thing, and kind of broke down where something had come from in our argument. And it's really, really nice to be with a person who will do that work and reflect. And that's one thing I will say. You saw it in the physical activity, but John is someone who is always willing to show up and do the work, and mirror work is really hard and really uncomfortable, but I encourage people to try it because I'm doing it a little bit more, and it is actually getting a little bit easier for me too. So maybe more to come on that. We can share more information about it, but thank you for asking the question, Monica. Okay. Thank you for this. Some of these are just very nice compliments about John being brave, which he is, and that is wonderful. So thank you for sharing those. We have from an anonymous attendee, how can people tell you about personal, theirs or other stories that they'd want highlighted in your next episode? Thank you for asking that question. I will try not to get too into it because it would probably make me very upset, but I have a lot of close friends on here that the woman that you saw at the end in memory of Lauren was one of our closest friends who passed away 2 weeks ago. And I kind of always thought about Stigma being a series about mental illness because they will say mental health. They don't like saying mental illness. It's a scary word. And there are certain mental illnesses that some of you might be familiar with or close to that are very misunderstood. So people think that PTSD has to be someone who has served in the military, and that's not always the case. It's people who have been through trauma. People hear schizophrenia and it's on Law and Order, and someone did some horrible thing because they were schizophrenic. And so it really started with that. But this experience going through losing a very, very dear friend made me realize that there are a lot of things that have a stigma carried with them that don't have to be mental illness. So I'm really intrigued right now by the idea of grief, because grief is something that people tell you to get through, and one day you'll get over it. And for anyone who's gone through it, you know that you won't. It's like you're in it and you're never going to get out of it, but you learn how to live your life and keep going in a way that is healthy because you're always going to carry it with you. So I think that could open things up. But having said that, there have been people who have reached out already, sharing some things that they've been through. So adults who have Asperger's, but maybe haven't told a lot of people, and people don't understand that it's something that has been around for a while, or people who are schizophrenic and they're very open about it, and just sort of this beautiful, beautiful thing of people opening up. So to anyone, to the anonymous attendee, I would love to hear from you. There's an email address that only I see, which is thestigmadoc@gmail.com, because STIGMADoc was taken, and I'm not a doctor, and I realize that's not the greatest, but stigmadoc.com is the website, so thestigmadoc.com, or sorry, thestigmadoc@gmail.com. But there's also a contact form on the website, and again, I'm the only one who sees that. You can find me on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. Again, no one's managing any of my stuff, so I would love to hear from people who want to share, and I tried very hard with John's story to make sure to not do the stuff that would be shocking and capture people's attention for that reason, and I would promise to honor your story if it worked out. So thank you for asking that. That's what I would be looking for, and the next one doesn't have to be about grief. I just thought about that because I'm in it right now, and I'm not sure I'll tell a better story about grief than now, but there are a lot of really wonderful stories to tell, so thank you for asking. Ooh, this one is a good one from Natalie Blazer. What was your creative process like crafting this story, being so close to each other? Did it help grow your relationship? To the last question, I would say yes.
It was a growing experience for sure.
And growth is sometimes uncomfortable.
I think that's a fair answer. Yeah, I think that there's definitely, we struggled with the balance of, and the blame probably all goes on me. She was very sensitive to me and my opinions, and I think I was very sensitive to how everybody would receive this. So we edited a lot of stuff, and I think that she would have been eager to keep a couple things in there, right? Fair. But I after a few versions, I was just like, no, I don't know, because I was just so afraid of how this person or that person may receive it. So it made the cutting room floor. So I think those things made it not a challenge, but just made it a practice and patience. And but I love how it turned out. I wouldn't change it. So
and then I would just say that for anyone who is living with this stuff on their own, whether you have it in yourself or your relationship, it can be very hard to hear trauma. So part of the reason I originally was starting to go to therapy was some of the stories I heard they were so heavy to carry that I didn't know how to do it, and I wanted to be a good partner and help hold it, but I also wasn't sure how to do it. So I think I couldn't have done this story without years together and understanding where things came from and what mattered and why. I write, and so I am writing something based on his life, and so some nights we'd be talking and I'd say, can I record you? Can I hit the voice memo thing on my phone, which Judy Stockton, if you're still on, you know what that is. She is a wonderful saint of a woman who everyone should know about, and I've asked her if I can tell a story about her only, and she doesn't like the limelight. So, but her name got in there. She didn't know that was coming. Yeah, I don't remember the digression with Judy Stockton. She's just great. But yeah, it was complicated, but took a lot of time and getting to know each other. And I would record some stories so I could remember them, and it helped me process what are the important parts to tell people. And yeah, so thank you for asking that. Sorry, I'm reading, which is probably boring for everyone. So how many episodes are planned? So the ideal scenario is to do a docuseries. So I'm thinking 6 episodes in a season, and each one would be an hour long. And I don't know what everything looks like, but I do think that there is some. It's interesting to consider telling the story of a mental illness or a condition or a situation that people might find themselves in that is told through the lens of multiple protagonists. And so John doesn't love being on camera, surprisingly, the guy who's on Instagram, but he has said he's done, he doesn't want to do anymore. And so I would love to make his story richer, but I would love to tell a story because there are, and maybe some people on the call too, but there are people who maybe have children who are going through surviving trauma. And so telling, a youngest person's version, and are we middle-aged? Maybe. Yeah, middle-aged person. And then, someone who has sort of gotten through it, I think that could be a cool angle. But overall, I would love for each episode to be an hour, for there to be a season, and it would, be available for people to watch and just kind of expand their minds. And as the tagline for Stigma goes, change your mind, because you might think you know something about something and not totally. So Thank you for that question, Vince Demira. Sorry that I did not say your name. It was a really great question. Ware Washam, hello, I hope you're still here. So Ware is the mother of Lauren, and a dear friend to me, and she just asked about the voiceover. And what's interesting is that actually
yes, thank you for asking.
Yes, thank you for asking, because I could go on and on, but I won't. Judy Stockton is a woman who has just always advocated for people who feel unseen, and she just has always done it. And it's okay if I share, she's in her 80s, so she's been doing this kind of work for a very, very long time, even when it wasn't okay to do the work that she was doing. And I have interviewed her multiple times for the book, and John and I were watching one of the cuts, and he was like, I love these graphics, but what's going to go over it? And I was like, nothing. And he was like, it's too silent. It can't be silent for that long. And we had already woven her into it. If you look at the graphics, it says like property of Judy Stockton in the bottom right, and it says 6th grade mental health education. And a friend who works in this field of psychology said that's really great, because this is something a 6th grader could understand when talking about like what happens in your brain. And so I called Judy Stockton, and I texted her first, and then I called her, and then we Zoomed, because she Zooms. And I said, like, let me show you on my phone how you do voice memo, and can I send you a script? And then she said, you have to tell me if it's not good. And I was like, of course I'll tell you if it's not good. And of course it was good, but the tone wasn't right. And so I went back to her and I said, I need you to do this different tone. So it was directing her over the phone with this voice app, and then she would send it back to me. But it was a really fun process, and I'm so glad that we could capture her voice, because it's one that is very meaningful to John. Yeah, what is her relationship to John? Judy Stockton was John's 6th grade teacher, and was the first to diagnose him as being dyslexic. So this is the troubles he was having in school that no one understood. She saw right away and said, this is what this is. And she spent 3 years tutoring John after school for at least 2 hours a day, 5 days a week for 3 years.
Every day for free.
Every day.
Every day. And yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I mean, it was changed my life for so many reasons, but for so many reasons. But if we're just going to keep it educational, and for brevity's sake, for her humility, I mean, I was reading at a 2nd grade level at sight words, it and the dog cat John. That's about it. And at the end of the year, I was diagramming sentences, finding predicates and nouns and adjectives. The next year, I read my first book. And then by the 3rd year, I had read 10 books to her and had to highlight, find foreshadowing. She changed my life in a lot of ways, and protected me and from things and situations, and really thank God for her. Like, for, you know, if everybody gets an angel, I got mine, and I got her just in time, because for sure I was just not well, I don't even know. She's just my guardian angel, and that's for brevity's sake.
Thank you, Ware, for that question. Dermot, great question. So Dermot asked, John, do you think that you approached mirror work and techniques like that with the same kind of focus as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, BJJ?
No, because I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instantly, and mirror work, I had to make it a practice. It's still kind of a practice sometimes, especially if I know I was ugly or yelled or did something I'm not proud of. I know I have to atone for it, so I'm not looking forward to mirror. I'll dread mirror work for 10 minutes before I walk in the bathroom. I'll say this though, no, I think that's probably fair. You know, I think that's probably a fair answer. It definitely wasn't as natural or a love, but it's equally a value of a practice to me. I'm somebody that, like all of us, sometimes I have a lot of anxiety, you know, and I have to channel that energy. So the daily practicing of working out and all those things, these were things I've been doing for years, and I just started to hit record. Mirror work was totally abstract to me. It's still kind of abstract, but you know, it's important. Like, it's important for me to reset, and take that time, for better or for worse. And so, yeah, great question.
And I'll just give a special shout out just in case anyone from there is here still, but Valco BJJ and Jay Valco, thank you. Well, also not thank you, because all I hear about is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu all day, every day. But it has been a wonderful outlet with really wonderful human beings that John has met, and been a really good channel, or like a good place to channel some of the energy. So thank you for the question, Dermot. So from Randy, two-parter, love it. Well, I'll read this because it's a nice compliment. This was wonderfully shot, and the concept is brilliant. Just kidding. Especially the way you're planning on expanding it. Are you planning on working with a doctor moving forward? Where could I donate to help fund the project? Thank you for asking that. Yes, please. So in some of the posts that I've done, I said that my senior year in college, I did my thesis project was a documentary about how schizophrenia affects the family unit. And I interviewed a doctor at the National Institute of Mental Health, and she was a lead researcher on schizophrenia. And I know that that's one of the pieces that feels missing in the component of wanting to do education. So it's amazing to be able to do the graphics that Dalton brought to life in Just 2, to have this concept and this theme that worked for John being in 6th grade when Miss Stockton did so much to save him and help him understand himself. But it would be lovely to be able to have doctors who understand this stuff, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, whomever it might be, that are just passionate about what they do and can tell stories that are based on anecdotes they understand, but don't have to be in any way specific. So Randy, yes and yes, please. So I don't know if you are one of those, but please reach out if you would like to. And then there is a Kickstarter for this. So if you go to stigmadoc.com, there is a button on the bottom of every page that says get involved. It says change your mind, get involved. That was very intentional. And we will be submitting this to Sundance, which is very exciting. The short film category of Sundance is the only one that you're allowed to share the story and have distributed it. Usually you have to not do any of that, and then you submit it, and hopefully it gets accepted. But in this category, we are lucky that we can submit it. So that's the next step, and some other really great festivals that haven't been canceled yet are ones that we want to just share this story and see what people think of it. And the dream is always like people will see it and go, more of these need to be made, and here's all our money for you. But it's too important to wait for that to happen. So we hope that there will be something like that where someone says this is worth financing and we want to help you distribute it. But because all of you are here and you all watched it, and we had like almost 100 people watching that live thing, and thank you for commenting during that and commenting during this. I just believe that this is something people want, and I'm not going to stop until it's done. A little support on the way would be helpful, because it'd be cool to shoot one of these in more than one day, with more than just us two. And other subjects might not be as nice as John, who carried cameras and was willing to do stuff that otherwise wouldn't happen.
Forget to mention that aspect. John actually did carry cameras at certain points too.
So yes, so thank you for asking the question, and we would be very grateful if anyone wanted to go to the Kickstarter and donate. But honestly, equally as great is just telling people about this, especially when it's on Amazon, so that people can go find it in a place and tell other friends. And I don't know how the algorithms work, but hopefully we can get a flood. So be expecting a message if you follow us on social media, or if you go to the website. Be expecting that once it's live on Amazon Prime, we'll say, hey, please share this post that we did or that I did, so that it gets that virality juice of people seeing it, and so people can go and find this thing that we do believe is going to be really helpful for people. I did a post earlier this week, but more than 10 people have reached out between John and I, some privately, some publicly, to share things that either they're very comfortable talking about that others maybe feel like, oh, how could they talk about that? And then some who really aren't that comfortable with those things. And it just, every time it happened, both of us got tears in our eyes. We'd be like, look, like, oh my God, like, this is crazy. Because that was the whole point, is to make it normalized, because you talk about it and you're not afraid to, and there's not shame, because it's mental health is like physical health, and physical illness and mental illness. Like, so much of this can't be controlled, and if we all understood each other a little bit more, I think we'd be more compassionate. And in this time, more than ever, let's do everything we can to understand each other and not make assumptions. Okay, I think that's it. And I'm so grateful that people have stayed this long, because I know it definitely went over, but it's really meaningful, and I recorded it because it's going to be a fun memory to remember that time that these people that we love all came together to support us. So I hope I didn't read all of the comments. I hope that's okay, but Judy Stockton was here for the first part. I hope she's still here. I don't know if she is because she's not messaging. She also doesn't like attention, so that might be fine. So otherwise, thank you all so much. Be on the lookout next week as soon as we find out that it's live on Amazon again. If you'd be willing to watch it, we'd be really appreciative. But more importantly, tell people about it and talk about this thing that was cool that you saw, and people will watch it and they'll feel like it's okay to talk about this stuff. So good.
Great.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.